In a world where thousands of games are released each year, it's often very easy to overlook some major titles. For example, it wasn't until last week that I realised a whole new Final Fantasy game had been released, which, to be fair, might have been for the best.
You've got to be crazy if you want to change the world.
But it got us to thinking, what are the biggest gaming sequels we forgot even existed? And unfortunately for us, everyone still remembers Duke Nukem Forever.
What? Did you think I was gone forever?
Crash Bandicoot, like his Purple Dragon counterpart, often remains dormant. It wasn't until the remastered Insane trilogy in 2017 that people started giving Crash the respect he deserved. One particular adventure though goes massively overlooked: Crash of the Titans, which deserves some credit for its name alone. After the failure of Crash to Insanity, Crash took a weird turn from platformer to beat 'em up. The game saw you take control of various wild creatures and ride them until you defeated every enemy in an arena. If that sounds like a weird spin on Horizon Zero Dawn, it's because it kind of is. What stood Crash of the Titans out from its predecessors was its change in genre. The shift was a welcome change of pace, even if at times it felt like a Crash skin on an entirely different game. It's since been completely buried in the pile of other poorly received entries and spin-offs that held people off until the remastered trilogy. But one thing's for sure, I'll never forget you, Sludge. Wolfenstein The New Order and The New Colossus completely blew everyone away with their incredible level design, hilarious dialogue, and brilliant gunplay. But when talking about a potential sequel, one thing no one asked for was co-op. Online multiplayer wouldn't have been remiss, but co-op wasn't particularly at the top of anyone's list. As such, this weird 80s-laden co-op sequel sits in a very weird place in Bethesda's library. The game saw you play as BJ Blazkowicz's twin daughters, Jessie and Zafir, while they worked together to take down the Fourth Reich. The game's biggest problem, though, came from a fundamental system change in the form of a leveling system. Killing Nazis becomes a lot less fun when you have to start worrying if you're the right level for the job, especially in such a narratively linear game. The game's co-op angle and cheaper price tag made the game feel more like a spin-off than a full entry to the franchise, and as such, it's rarely spoken about in comparison to its previous entries. It has to be said though, while it doesn't land all of its gameplay choices perfectly, it does set the franchise up for a very interesting fourth entry. Sonic is not the first furry beast on this list, and nor is it the last. It is, however, the scariest. Werehog Sonic often haunts my dreams, and whether that's due to his scary demeanour or his terribly designed levels, I'm not quite sure. Sonic Unleashed sits in a weird category of 3D Sonic games in which the blue blur gets put into some pretty random settings. Secret of the Ring saw him gain a genie partner, Curse the Black Knight saw him wield a sword, and then Sonic Unleashed saw him become a werewolf. Half this game is great, it has some of the most fun 3D Sonic levels to date, while the other half is one of the most frustrating platformers I've ever played. Each of the Werehog sections see you slowly walking around a townscape at night, taking part in some drab, lifeless fights and some janky platforming. It pretty much takes everything that makes a Sonic game great and does the opposite. I mean, even Shadow the Hedgehog had guns. While it might be the most forgettable in the series, it's not quite the worst, but that's a story for another time. When someone says Wii Sports, what are the first things that come to mind? Tennis? Bowling? Maybe boxing? What about power cruising? Wakeboarding? Disc golf? Swordplay? Wii Sports Resort is the overlooked sequel that built on everything the original pioneered. Yes, it included some of the first game's best sports, rest in peace tennis, but it also added in some great new ones, which made Resort stand out as its own beast. Not that kind of beast though. Although one of the game's biggest selling points eventually turned out to be its biggest detriment, Wii Motion Plus. While the original game was packaged with the console, Wii Sports Resort was burdened with the Motion Plus accessory, which featured better gyro controls and accuracy. While it was a great addition, it left the game behind a wall that made it difficult to access. To this day, Wii Sports is mainly remembered for its popular older brother, but I'm glad to know that some of its legacy lives on in Nintendo Switch Sports, and that they finally changed the name of Swordplay.
Slash, guard, counter. Test your swordplay skills in Chambara.
It's very controversial to say, but BanjoKazooie Nuts and Bolts is actually my favourite entry in the franchise, although I do have a very specific love for the Game Boy Advance game Grunty's Revenge. Now before you all dislike and close the video, give me a second to plead my case, please. The collectathon nature of BanjoKazooie lends itself very well to a physics-based builder. The freedom and control of trying to solve puzzles using custom-made vehicles is incredibly satisfying. You can tackle puzzles in almost any way, and the feeling of winning a race with some wacky Mad Max-like vehicle is unmatched, even if the builder isn't that complex. It's understandable that people forget its existence. After all, it's kind of like the bad piggies of the BanjoKazooie series. After 8 years of wanting a sequel, I can also see why people would be annoyed that this is what they got. But if you take away anything from this video, it's that maybe you should give BanjoKazooie Nuts and Bolts another shot. So there we have it, 5 games you totally forgot existed. Make sure to like and subscribe and let us know if there are any other games that we might have missed. Now that you've remembered these 5 games, hopefully it pushed out the memory of Duke Nukem Forever.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for God's sake.